Hello friends, Frogopolis here, and today I would like to talk about my love for mockumentaries and found footage, more specifically the movie Horror in the High Desert and its sequel, Minerva. I find these genres give you a unique sense of immersion that works especially well for horror, and that these movies are a great example of that. So let's get into it with the first one, Horror in the High Desert.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think when I told Gary something bad is gonna happen, did I think it was gonna be this?
Here we follow the disappearance of Gary Hinge in the Nevada deserts. We meet his sister Beverly and his roommate Simon, who are spearheading this documentary in hopes of finding him. They're also being helped by journalist Gal Roberts. I like the use of the Nevada desert for a horror setting because it's so vast and so easy to get lost in, but also really beautiful and gives a sense of wonder. There's numerous shots of the landscape and wildlife, and I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, and that's probably another reason why I like this movie so much. We learn more about Gary Hinge through his family and friends talking about him in old footage. We see an adventurous and caring man, and as cliche as it sounds, he does seem to liven up the lives of the people around him. He's also a trained man, and I respect that. They do a really good job in the first quarter, really humanizing Gary and making you feel empathy for him. You want to find out what happened to him and you grow attached. We find out Gary was very knowledgeable of the Nevada desert and an experienced hiker, making his disappearance all that more mysterious. He worked for a company called Map Nevada, where he would map out the Nevada desert, which sounds like a dream job for him since, hey, he's already out there all the time anyway. And throughout the movie we see recordings of him taking his little hiking trips, mapping out the area, and showing us neat stuff that's in the desert, like old mining camps and cemeteries, which he's able to make interesting instead of spooky. Well, it's still spooky. If you couldn't guess, I like this character. I find him endearing.
Oh my god, sheep. Hi, sheep. Look at all the sheep. Sheep are a lot nicer than people. Hey, little sheeps. Look at all you guys.
But of course, by the time we get to this documentary, he's been missing for some time now, and anything could have happened to him. Did somebody kill him? Did he simply get lost? Did he get injured and just died in the elements? Any number of things could have happened. At one point, the sister even floats the idea that the roommate may have had something to do with it, as he's the last person who saw him. And of course, Simon isn't too thrilled being accused of murder, so there's obviously some friction between the two. The whole situation is obviously very stressful and frustrating, especially since nobody can find him, no matter how many search groups or police or search and rescue go to find him, and no matter how many high-tech gadgets they bring in and drones, he just disappeared. Though we do find some things in this search. They find his truck abandoned, and they find footprints that aren't Gary's leading to it. More concerningly, they find out that Gary's truck was moved by somebody else. Despite this development, there's no new leads after this, and the case eventually goes cold. The cops call off the search, and this is devastating for everyone involved. But of course, hope isn't gone yet, as they had hired a private investigator, William Salerno, to help out. And this is where things get interesting and spooky. We find out that Gary had his own blog that nobody knew about and he kept secret, and he had 50,000 followers on it. And it's a pretty normal blog where he talks about his love for hiking and nature, along with some survival tips. But he also finds something pretty interesting when he's out there. While not documented at the time, Gary talks about how he found a cabin in the woods. And this discovery fills Gary with a sense of dread and paranoia he has not felt before. And of course, being the internet, his followers want proof. you know, ticks or it didn't happen, so he vows to go back. In another interesting development, they find his backpack, and it was seemingly placed at a camping site by somebody else. His belongings are in there, and, his severed hand, and it's holding a video camera. So, what's on the tape? We see that Gary did in fact go back to the spooky cabin to document his findings, and we start hearing a very eerie tune coming throughout the area, seemingly all around him. God, there's something about this vocalization that really creeps me out. I like it. This is why I like the genre. Like, even on a second watch through, I was engaged and creeped out by this ending. It spends its time setting the mood and gaining your investment, so when you're finally hit with the final moments of his fate, you're sitting on pins and needles. Things get worse for our train-loving friend when a person emerges from the cabin, and Gary is frozen with fear, and even with the open desert behind him, he's trapped. This person seemingly can't see him, but they can definitely hear him. And they eventually light a torch and start hunting him down. And unfortunately, he eventually finds Gary. In the worst way possible, Gary's friends and family get their closure, but are left with more questions than answers. Gary's disappearance and death wasn't a one-off incident though. We find out in Horror in the High Desert 2 that there have been many, many more.
911, what is the address of your emergency? Hello? Hello?
A year after Gary's murder, Gal Roberts is back to document the mysterious death of Minerva Sound. Right off the bat, we're shown a silent but haunting 911 call, and hear from the unfortunate first responder that had to find her body. And he had just moved there and started this job, so he is not having a good time. Minerva was a college student who went to Cypress, Nevada to study geology. The footage we see of her is video she took of herself to send her friend Kathy while she was staying there. Along with Minerva's case, we also get stories from locals about the history of the area, and we see another case that happened in the area too. Through these stories we get, being strongly hinted at in the first movie, there's something that might be a little more than a serial killer on the loose going on here. But the movie always makes sure to stay grounded in reality. An example of this is how a local tells a story of how her and her husband were having trouble with some hunters after they told them that they could no longer hunt on their property, so they were coming by at night to vandalize the place. When the husband went to go chase them down after thinking he spotted them, he took some pictures and found something that doesn't quite look like a hunter to me. Who these people are becomes only more mysterious and sinister when the responders are going through the murder scene and they find a bag that they think is Minerva's, but it's not, and it's full of tapes and paintings. And once again, nothing good ever comes out of finding a bag full of tapes. You think it's gonna be like, oh, maybe someone's family vacation. No, there's gonna be like a demon crawling out of a well and eating somebody's head. And wanting to know it, it's the tapes of a serial killer. Also, these paintings are really cool. Whoever made these did a fantastic job. I would buy these. Hang them up in my house, bring people over, have them never want to come back again. It would be great. The tapes are horrifying. They come off as just very natural and real with the effects and sound. This is why I love the genre. It just feels so authentic, and that's so important. Even if the audience knows what they're watching is fake, authenticity is key, and this movie nails that. While we never see who's recording, we do get to hear them speak, and they're predictably unnerving.
He's coming in. He's coming in. got one for you.
And we also learn, rather horrifyingly, that he has access to the trailer that Minerva's been staying in this whole time. Because, you see, the trailer was on top of a basement, and the trailer only got moved off the basement after she died. It seems he's been using this basement for quite some time, and just to add more to the mystery, in one of the tapes, he goes into the basement and the radio is playing, and it's this guy saying numbers, and he gets gradually louder and more frantic. It is completely insane. But let's back up for a minute, because she doesn't die right away. She actually spends time, of course, experiencing the weirdness, but it's not just her, it's also her neighbor. Remember that weird music from the first movie? Well, it seems to be some sort of signal for whenever this entity or person or people are around. And her neighbor hears it too, and despite his efforts to find out what's going on, he simply can't. Over time, Minerva starts to feel sick and tired, and when she goes to the doctor, he tells her that it might be black mold inside the trailer, but when she checks, there's none there. This gets so bad that one night she just falls asleep while recording a message for her friend. And this is when we hear the fact that there is another person inside the trailer with her. Whoever this is doesn't do anything though. I guess he's toying with her until later on. In her last video that was ever taken on her phone, we see her trying to find the source of strange noises that are happening in her walls. And unfortunately for her, she finds out what's making it. While we never see what happens to her, we get this bizarre detail where we find out that when they found her body, the temperature was turned all the way up in the trailer to an unbearable level, and they also comment on the condition of her body and how strange it was. Since the trailer was moved after her death and the foundation underneath it was filled up and paved over, we'll never really get answers to what truly happened to her. Sadly, just like Gary, her death will be a mystery and the case will go cold. Unfortunately, this isn't the end of it, as we have one more person to look at. Connecting Cyprus and Vegas is a long, desolate stretch of road, and it is along this very long stretch of road that we learn of the disappearance of Emiliana Bratcher. She was traveling to her parents' place from Vegas, and her car broke down along the way. Her dad goes to go get her, and the police are informed too, but the drive to where she is pretty lengthy, and on top of this, there is no cell reception. By the time they get there, they find her car, but not her, and we find out what happened through her dashcam footage. This scene in particular is actually why I wanted to cover these movies. I think it's expertly crafted and one of the scariest things I've seen in a while. Using just 2 viewpoints from the dashcam, the movie subtly trained you of where to look at to see the thing, where everything's going to go wrong and when everything's going to go to hell for this poor woman. There's also an extra layer of tension knowing that there's help on the way. So when you finally see the silhouette of the guy, illuminated by the cars coming by, neither of which are cops or her father, it's horrifying. It also doesn't help that this actress screams bloody murder, and it is genuinely distressing. We get a very clever but heartbreaking scene transition showing her playfully grabbing her baby son's leg and lifting him up.
Where are you going?
Thankfully, he wasn't with her at this time, and she's just gone. First responders come to look for her, and oh my god, this poor guy has to go through this again. Him and 3 others spread out to find her, and he hears her cries for help, so he goes to go look for her and he's looking everywhere with his flashlight, and he accidentally drops it, so he has to turn on his infrared, and much like a bag full of videotapes, nothing good ever happens in infrared. He does make it out, but unfortunately they don't find her. In the end, much like before, we just have more questions than answers and a lack of closure, but I think that's okay. At least to me, these movies are more about fearing the unknown and finding yourself in the middle of nowhere completely lost. Sometimes less is more, and these are a perfect example of that. And it's not over yet, as a 3rd film is coming out very soon. We see at the end of this one that an online influencer has seemingly cracked the code of where the mysterious cabin from the 1st film is. This sounds like a terrible idea to investigate this on his part, but I'm sure it'll make a great movie, and I can't wait to see it. Thank you for watching and keep it spooky. Bye.